Hello, this is Çağatay Çivici, the project lead of PrimeNG. In this short video, I'd like to discuss the upcoming features of PrimeNG 10. So the title is PrimeNG Road to 10. It is actually the most important release in the history of the project. There are three goals of PrimeNG 10, and they are the library will be lighter, faster, and more stunning. I will just discuss them briefly right now. So the current state is right now we are on PrimeNG 9.1, which has been just released. It is one of the most popular libraries out there for Angular, and there are a couple of free themes. There are premium stuff like premium Angular CLI templates. I believe it is the most complete UI library for Angular. And I was personally away from PrimeNG last year during PrimeNG 7 and 8. And because I was busy working on PrimeView, which is just about to be released. And a lot of the innovation we have done on the PrimeView will be available for PrimeNG as well. So, as I mentioned, it is the most important release in the history of PrimeNG. So, up until now, the components were using the default change detection. And although it works, it does not sound like that it's the best practice because, I mean, our components, as they are native Angular components, they do change detection and other stuff. But, I mean, we believe they should not be using the default change detection. And for PrimeNG 10, we will be updating them to use ONPUSH by default. So, I mean, we're not planning any configuration properties, and we were just setting this at build time. So the advantage of ONPUSH changes actions that you will save a lot of CPU cycles, and whenever something happens outside of a PrimeNG component, our components won't be detected for changes. And this has, for example, for complex components, and if you have a lot of components on the page, the performance benefit will be, I mean, significant. And forget about the benchmarks and things. You will even realize it when you update it to PrimeNG 10. Because on our tests, because we are just playing with the idea, I mean, even our own case runs much faster, and the performance gain is noticeable. Of course, we cannot do it overnight because up until now, since the PrimeNG 1, our components were running on the default change detection. So right now there are a couple of issues, but I'm sure we will tackle them. And in PrimeNG 10, you will have a faster and more performant library. So this is the second part. The first one was this faster part, and now this part is about being lightweight. So when we first begin with Angular, we had some issues with our styles using the styles property or the style URLs because personally, when I was working with Angular, it was the alpha, Angular 2 alpha. So we were trying to build a library, but we had all sorts of troubles about our resources, and our resources were, coming from the prime faces. So a CSS of some resource was depending of another CSS, so they were tightly coupled. So lately we have decoupled them, so component CSS don't really depend on each other much. So this means we can now migrate to the built-in style and resource loading mechanisms of Angular. The main problem is right now PrimeNG CSS is loaded like a CSS library, so it's like a global library like Bootstrap. So you just have to include, when you use Bootstrap, you need to include the Bootstrap CSS. But with PrimeNG, it's similar. you need to include PrimeNG CSS as well. Actually, you don't need to, because from the JavaScript side, you can import each component on its own. Like if you want table, you get the table. But when you get the PrimeNG CSS, you get, even though you're going to use table, you will get the tab views CSS or accordion CSS, button CSS as well. And now we are going to fix that with the integrated styles. When you use the component, dynamically Angular will load the style. So if you're just going to use the table, you won't be getting the styles of, let's say, slider or spinner. Currently, PrimeNG CSS is about 100 kilobytes, and our initial tests show that when we apply this change, it will be about 7 kilobytes, and it will just have core stuff, so it's minimal CSS. And the second part is the lighter theme CSS. We are also updating the PrimeNG theme designer. So with the theme designer, right now the story is more or less the same. If you're going to use, so everything is styled globally. So if you're going to use the table only from PrimeNG, suppose that you are mixing stuff from your own component, some component from other library. So you, as I mentioned, from the modular point of view, you can get the table only. So from the JavaScript point of view, you can just get the table. But for the theme, to make it look good, you need to import the theme of PrimeNG, and then you will get the styles of accordions, sliders, everything. So we are going to fix that as well. We will separate all the CSS of the components. So when you get the designer, you can just select which components you want, and they will be styled accordingly. So that you can just minimize and theme CSS per your needs. But I need to mention that this requires the access to the theme designer. Of course, we will provide free themes, but they will just be like in the bundled format. So in our initial tests show that on average, on an average application, it will be like 50% smaller. So PrimeNG 10 will save you a lot of kilobytes. Again, the other part of the styling is that when we look at our initial idea was that the free themes should look okay, and we can offer some premium stuff. But we have decided to change this idea, and our plan is to make even the free themes look spectacular. So I'm sure you will like it, because now we don't need to limit ourselves. It means we will be offering more free themes, and to do that, we are going to rewrite the core styling. Right now, the core CSS and the theming are like highly coupled. It was to do that, to provide these new clean themes, we just need to fix our architecture. So the core will be just doing alignment stuff. So no colors, nothing at all. And we will be using the modern CSS here. Of course, when you import it with your application, Angular CL application, you can use auto prefixer and decide which browsers you will support. And the theme part will just apply, the borders, colors, and things like that, so that we can be, the idea of PrimeNG is that it is design agnostic. So when you look at in 2020, the libraries bootstrap this, bootstrap that, material this, material that, or whatever CSS library people are wrapping. But the power of PrimeNG is that we have a core and we have the theming API, and that instead of rewriting the library, because styles are, it's just a preference. Some people like material, some people like bootstrap, some people like their own style guides, and it's different. The tastes are different. So right now in Angular, if you're going to switch from Bootstrap to Material or Material to your own site guideline, I mean, you have to choose a project, right? Like, PrimeNG, Bootstrap libraries, Material, Angular Material, or other libraries that use Material. But with PrimeNG, instead of rewriting your project and with the new UI library, you can choose PrimeNG as your UI library and just change the theme. You can instantly switch from Bootstrap to Material and Material to your own themes, your custom themes, instantly, just one line of CSS. To do that, we are going to, separate. By the way, right now this works, but with PrimeNG 10, it will be much better. So the core will be decoupled from the theming. The theming will just provide colors, where the core provides alignment. And this also means we will be offering 2 new free themes, not to replace, but in addition to the existing Nova, because Nova is the default theme. The SAGA will be the default theme. SAGA Blue will be the showcase default theme. VELA is the dark version. SAGA is the light version. They are more or less the same, but one is light and one is dark. They're brothers, actually. So they will be open source and free, and they look stunning. So, I mean, all the components have been styled by our professional design team, and they have been implemented already. Yeah, that's the good news. If you check out the Prime View, you can see VELA and SAGA in action. There will be 16 new themes, 8 for SAGA and 8 for VELA, with different color options. Nova and Luna are not going anywhere. Actually, they will be rewritten with the new architecture, but they will be backward compatible. But I mean, the output CSS will be more or less the same, the look and feel, but actually they will be generated by the new theme designer, which is actually done for Prime View as well. So we just need to port it. So this part is done. If you go to the Prime View, you can see how PrimeNG 10 will look like. So I personally, when I compare PrimeNG 10 and PrimeNG 9, the difference is, I mean, it's huge, and the PrimeNG 10 will be stunning. And you can right now go to Prime View to see this. So another thing is that the new styling will allow scalability. You can also check this out on Prime View site. We will, for PrimeNG as well, we are going to add a scaler. So because we will be switching to REM units, everything will be relative to the HTML root element. So we will be adding a scaler to our showcase so that you can change the scale of the components generally from just one CSS property, which is the font size. Also, we will be adding like per component sizes for the most popular or most commonly used components, like the inputs, buttons, and data tables. So, for example, there will be classes like the input text LG for large, small, SM for small, for buttons and tables as well. And we will be adding more in the future. So this means a couple of components can be scaled locally, and the whole suite will be scaled and can be scaled globally by just changing a single property. And this is also has been done, and you can check it on the Prime View site as well. One of the issues with the current styling is the lack of documentation, because we're just saying, okay, PrimeNG is very well, can be styled very well, but you need a designer. But we are not mentioning what the designer does actually. So there will be a new API, SES API, and surprise, surprise, it has been done already for Prime View. And there will be a new website, an API website, where whole variables are documented and they can be searched. And this is how it looks like. There are like, I guess, 500 variables. So you can do some fine tuning, or you can just use a couple of variables to do create your generic theme from data components, forms, and journals. I think the URL will be like something like PrimeNG/designer API, where you will be able to search all the variables based on their versions, what they do, and things like that. Another thing is our icons. So PrimeNG currently uses PrimeIcons 2, and right now for PrimeNG 10 we are updating our icons to 4.0, which means all the icons will be re-implemented, and our design team decided to come up with new icons instead of using the old ones, but the names are the same, so nothing will be broken. So when you just update the PrimeIcons 4, they will just look much better. And as I've mentioned before, this work has been done, and you can check it out on PrimeView website as well. I must say the icons are really small things, but they just add so much value to the project when I compare currently the old icons, the new icons with the new theming, the old theming. I mean, I think we will really step up the overall look and feel with these changes. Okay, some interesting stuff. As a UI library vendors, because at PrimeTech we just do UI components, so it's our business for the last 10 years. So, but I think what I think is just we have lately focused on the advanced enterprise stuff, like a table must be scrollable with virtual scrolling, and some columns should be frozen. They should be inside a maximizable dialog. A lot of enterprise. So the PrimeNG focuses on the enterprise requirements, which are really complex. But when I look at the other libraries, they just have 10 or 15 components, alerts, and simple stuff. And I think that when we look at ourselves, it's just something we are missing, because we just in the past never cared about the small things like badges and things like that. But with PrimeNG 10, we are it's a new way of thinking. We will be adding some features where where can be found at the CSS frameworks. So badges are coming, and there will be badges tags. They can be positioned on top of other components. Buttons will have their own integrated badges as well. Another thing is what we call the form layout. Even on our showcases, we realized that we are doing a lot of CSS coding to align things. So there are a lot of form components at PrimeNG, but not a lot of easy ways to just align them and just to present them in a user-friendly way. And that's as page authors, that's a problem for us as well, because I found myself repeatedly writing custom CSS to make sure things look good. But for PrimeNG 10, we will be switching to something called form layout. Form layout is it's a small CSS utility written on top of the PrimeFlex, which is the official and optional grid library of PrimeNG. So of course the PrimeFlex itself can be used for forms, but just the paddings and things like that, they just don't fit really well with because it's like a generic grid library. Forms are different. You need to align them horizontally, vertically. There should be a grid mode. Checkboxes, radios need their own style. So we have created actually form layout. It is now available as a part of PrimeFlex, and right now it is already available. If you go to the PrimeNG showcase, you will be seeing a form layout at the form section, and we strongly suggest migrating to the form layout easily. It's just a couple of lines of rules and CSS, and you can create beautiful looking layouts in no time with the new form layout. So a couple of new components. This is called Galleria. We already had a Galleria component in the past, but with 9.1 we have a brand new Galleria, which is just superior to the old one. The old one was not responsive, no full screen mode, and kind of sluggish to work with. But the new Galleria is already available with PrimeNG 9.1. We were planning to do it for 10, but it was already available, so we just ported for 9.1. So it works with in full screen mode is optional. It's quite flexible, not just with images. You can just even display custom content inside, although it's meant for images. There are thumbnails, indicators, and advanced mode, and it's fully responsive. So you can right now go to the PrimeNG showcase and check this out as well. And another new one, already available in 9.1, is input number. So some news: spinner will be deprecated because spinner was just too primitive compared to the input number. We are using native browser APIs to get number formatting like the locales, for example, United States locale and the German locale, for example. There's a built-in currency mode and the fraction mode, minimum and maximum boundaries. So this new input number component is really superior to the spinner, so that we don't really need spinner anymore. Of course, we will not be removing anytime soon the spinner, but we highly suggest migrating to input number. It has built-in support for units, prefixes, suffixes, various button orientations, and it is really a powerful component when you are dealing with numbers in your forms. Already available in 9.1. Okay, virtual scrolling. We had virtual scrolling in our tables, and there was a separate virtual scroller, but we were not very happy with how it worked. So we had two choices: improve our own implementation or migrate to CDK scrolling. We have decided to migrate to CDK scrolling after running some tests and use our time and invest our time on other things like the styling and the performance, making PrimeNG lightweight instead of focusing on our own virtual scrolling implementation. So this is already available in 9.1. So the tree table had virtual scrolling, but they are now using CDK scrolling. With the new implementation, we are now able to offer virtual scrolling on lazy data or just preloaded data as well, which was not possible before. It is combinable with other complex table features like sorting and filtering. Tree has received virtual scrolling as well. When you're dealing with huge number of nodes, there were performance problems, but when you just enable virtual scrolling, it is lightning fast. So right now it's already available, and I highly encourage you to update to PrimeNG 9.1, and at PrimeNG 10 it will be improved further. So as I mentioned, right now it's using CDK scrolling, and preloaded and lazy options are already available. And compared to the old one, it is quite the UX in general, the user experience is much more fluid and performant. And one of the I personally work on this, one of my favorite features of 9.1, and I just tweeted about it. Received a lot of nice feedback from the community. Up until now, we had this scrolling was fixed, so we were just saying on the viewport, saying, okay, the viewport should be 200 pixels. But with flex scroll, we are now able to say, okay, scroll height should be flex, which is a keyword, meaning that each can allocate whatever the space it can allocate. So it optimizes the space available. And then, for example, if you put the dialog inside, if you put the table inside a dialog, and then if you maximize the dialog, the scrollable viewport will enlarge. And there's also a new demo right now. It's a full page mode, so that when you resize the window, so the flexible part, the scrollable part will scale. So it's compared to the fixed scroll height, like 200 pixels. This solves a lot of problems. NG template versus NG content is one of the things that's coming. So NG content resolves to content projection, like for example, container components like dialog or tab views of panels, receiving their content and rendering them. But the problem with the NG content is that, especially what we're having with the dialogues and things, NG, when you inject something with NG content, when you project something with NG content, like which is simply putting something inside a dialog, the lifecycle callbacks don't seem to be called like destroy things and other life callbacks. But when we use NG template, they are called properly. So actually, silently we have been introducing this. If you check out the overlay panel, we had a couple of issues but with NG content, but once we switch to NG template, all the issues are gone. Animations started to run flawlessly. So for all components that do content projection, which means getting their content and rendering them somewhere else, we will be migrating to NG template. This will be thankfully backward compatible, because NG template and NG content can live side by side. But we will, with PrimeNG 10, we will be encouraging the NG templating because of performance reasons and a bunch of other reasons as well. And in the future, like, I mean, this is a huge change, so we cannot do it right now, but maybe, you know, with PrimeNG 12, 13, we haven't decided, but eventually NG template will replace NG content. But right now, thankfully, or let's say luckily, there are no problems with backward compatibility, because they can live side by side. Okay, so right now I'm ending my small presentation. So a couple of things: immutability. So Prime React and Prime View never mutates the props. So when you provide a prop provide some data to a Prime React or Prime View component, they never mutate. So, but we have identified a couple of places where PrimeNG mutates the prop. So this means it's not where these minor cases, like a couple of places. So something we need to fix, and that's scheduled for PrimeNG 10 as well. So we will just make sure it plays nicely with, you know, store implementations like NGRX or NGXS. The web is always changing, so we were using the two table approach for scrolling for the last 10 years, but lately introduced, you know, the web, the latest specification introduced the position sticky, which might allow us to use one table and still use, you know, virtual scrolling, horizontal scrolling, frozen columns and things. I mean, it will really simplify the table. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, we may even delete half of the table and reduce its size and performance, because there will be less bindings. So we can make the table even lighter and faster by using the CSS-based approach, because, you know, the web is evolving, and since Prime UI libraries support very old browsers like IE8, because we were able to do it with the two table approach, separate tables, and make sure that they are aligned properly. But lately, we are really interested in re-implementing the, you know, scrollable tables to make sure that they're modern and faster and lighter. Another thing is that something that we've done for Prime View. With the Prime View, for select components, we just use option label and option value, option disabled. But PrimeNG components from their start, they depend something called select item, which is our own API, and you need to import it. With PrimeNG 10, we are going to introduce option value and encourage page authors to use not to depend on select item, not to depend on these library APIs, and just easily provide arbitrary objects. When you import something from PrimeNG/PrimeNG, like import table from PrimeNG/PrimeNG, the problem is that since PrimeNG is a shorthand, the right-hand side, even if you're going to use table, you will get whole suite, so that your application bundle will increase in size. It has been deprecated for some time, and now with PrimeNG 10, we are just going to remove it. So we may, even write some schematics to make sure with NG update your imports can be fixed. But I think a lot of applications are, because it's something that we have done like years ago, like I guess 2 years ago, they were deprecated, but now it's now time to remove them. So the premium templates, we have a couple of premium templates, like material ones, bootstrap ones, and custom ones. All of them will be, of course, updated to PrimeNG 10, but since we are doing this premium templates for some time, it's now the time to modernize them as well. Their look and feel, mostly, not their implementation. Implementation will be more or less the same, but the UI, there will be new dashboards, the new themes. They will look much more modern as well. So we have started something called PrimeNG, let's say, Renaissance or renovation. The libraries are changing. They are being modernized at the moment. And first, we have started with the Prime View. The next one will be PrimeNG and PrimeReact. They will be updated in parallel, and we will finish with Prime Faces 9, so that all 4 Prime UI component libraries will be, let's say, updated to the next gen. We have developed Prime View as a concept, and it's the first initial implementation of this new concept. And right now, PrimeNG 9 is something called current generation, and the PrimeNG 10 will be the next generation, and it will be implemented using our next concept and our next vision. So thank you for joining me on this video, and stay tuned for PrimeNG 10. I'm pretty sure if you're already liking PrimeNG 9, if you think that PrimeNG 9 is already good and does the job, you will be really amazed by how PrimeNG 10 will look like and how it will perform. So stay tuned, and always bet on Prime.